we have a double portion of scripture today, Chukat and Balaam. I wanted to do some reading again in order to go through these scriptures together. So, welcome to Batzion Story Time. I wanted to do a map today, but I couldn't figure out how to do it well. I'm not real good with the technology, and I didn't know how to do it, so I decided to try to do descriptions with words. So if you can kind of remember what the map of Israel and that whole area looks like, the Sinai and so forth, maybe you can help to imagineer through this journey we're going to go on with the children of Israel and so forth as I describe them. So we'll begin in the book of Numbers, and it's also called Bamidbar in Hebrew. And we're starting in chapter 19. That's where Chukat, the portion, begins. It begins with a section I read last time I taught. It's the part about the red heifer, the preparation and use of it, as well as the rules about coming into close contact with a dead body and being cleaned afterwards and all that. I'm not going to go back there again today. The next chapter, chapter 20, tells about the death of Miriam, the sister of Aaron. Then it goes into the account about the waters of Meribah, which we sang about, and, Meribah, where Moses strikes the rock instead of speaking to or about the rock, which I believe is Yeshua. But anyway, he and Aaron are warned by God that because of this sin, they will not be allowed to enter into the promised land. We're going to skip that story too. Instead, as I mentioned, I want to go into the geography a little bit. The description of the travels of Israel follows after the story of the waters of Meribah. It's, the story of waters, and this thing happened. God says, you're not going into the land. And then suddenly they start, without warning, they start talking about the travels. We have been reading all about different events in the desert or Bamidbar for a long time. We've also been reading different commandments that Elohim has been delivering to the children of Israel by the way of Moses. But here, suddenly, without warning, we begin reading the description of the beginnings of Israel entering the promised land. No fanfare, nothing. It just starts to happen. So, Numbers chapter 20, this is where it begins. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, now, just as a reminder, Edom is descended from Esau. Remember, Esau is Edom? Remember that? He's the brother of Jacob. Jacob received the blessing and the inheritance from his father, Isaac. Esau did not. You remember the story of how Jacob's mother dressed Jacob up to fool Isaac? Remember how she cooked food for his father Isaac, for Jacob to bring to him in order to receive the blessing? This is while Esau was out hunting, trying to get a deer or whatever. Remember also how Esau had also, previous from this, he had despised his inheritance and sold it to Jacob for a bowl of lentil stew. So, this is Edom now. Israel does not want to annihilate Edom, nor are they supposed to. Edom is their brother. One other thing, this place they are, Kadesh. I looked it up on the maps to figure out where it is. Turns out that the most likely place is Kadesh Barnea. Kadesh Barnea is way down south in Israel. It's about 50 miles south and a little bit east of Beersheba. And you know how far south Beersheba is? It's way down there. Well, this is beyond that. So it's way out in that southern desert. If you travel straight east from Kadesh Barnea, you're down here, you're going that way. In about 40 miles, you come to the Arabah, or the low place that is directly south of the Salt Sea or the Dead Sea as we know it today. So you go 40 miles east, you come to that Arabah area. If you keep going, you come to Edom. And actually, maybe they are in the Arabah too. I don't know. But this is where the descendants of Esau ended up, south of the Dead Sea and to the east. Back to Numbers chapter 20, verse 14. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, your brother Israel says, you know all the travail that has happened to us, how our fathers went down to Egypt and we lived in Egypt a long time. The Egyptians mistreated us and our fathers. When we cried to Yahweh, he heard our voice, sent an angel, and brought us out of Egypt. Now, behold, we are in Kadesh, a city on the edge of your border. Please, let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or through vineyard, neither will we drink from the water of the wells. I don't know how they're going to do that, but that's what they're saying. We will go along the king's highway, which there is a king's highway, right. We will not turn away to the right hand or to the left until we have passed your border. If we just want to pass through, can we do it? King's highway was a road or path that stretched all the way from the tip of the Gulf of Aqaba in the south, way down there. That's where Ezion-Geber is, Ezion-Geber, and runs generally straight north all the way through Edom, Moab, and Ammon. This is all on the eastern or far side of the Salt Sea and the Jordan River. It's on the east part. By the way, Ezion-Geber is the place where Moses was when he was taking care of the sheep for his father-in-law, after he escaped from Egypt as a young man. Remember that? He escaped. He went to Jethro, his father-in-law, and he's out there. That's where Jethro lived, was Ezion-Geber. So, back to Edom. But that's like way south. That's like the way south like of Edom. It's like way down there. Back to Edom. The children of Israel are trying to be nice here, right? They're also trying to get onto the king's highway. Obviously, this road is known to them and is the preferred route for them. I mean, well, it's 6 lanes and the speed limit is 75. So, not really. Remember, they have now been in this desert for 40 years. By now, they know a bunch of the geography and lay of the land, even though they've not been to all the locations. So they're kind of aware of these things. Okay, back to Numbers 20. But Edom, here's his answer, says to him, "You shall not pass through me, lest I come out with a sword against you." Try that and I'll kill you, they say. The sons of Israel said to him, "We will go up by the highway, and if we drink your water, I and my livestock, then I will give its price." At least they're being a little more realistic this time. But they're saying, yeah, we'll pay if we drink your water. Only let me, without doing anything else, pass through on my feet. But he said, "You shall not pass through." Edom came out against him with many people and with a strong hand. Thus, Edom refused to give Israel passage through his border, so Israel turned away from him. They traveled from Kadesh, and the sons of Israel, even the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. Okay, this Mount Hor is the place where Aaron dies. It does not appear on my Oxford Bible Atlas, but the current accepted location, if that is correct, is in Petra, Jordan. It's called Jebi Nebi Harun, or Mountain of the Prophet Aaron. Jebi is mountain. Nebi is like the Hebrew Nebi, which is prophet, and Harun is the Arabic spelling of Aaron. So Jebi, Nebi, so it's kind of neat. Arabic is similar to Hebrew. Another aside, the word for mountain in Hebrew is har, hey resh. The name for Hor is the name of the mountain, Mount Hor, it's the same spelling, hey resh. So when you say Mount Hor in Hebrew, it's kind of like saying mountain, or they say the way it's said in Hebrew is Hor ha-har, Hor the mountain, which is the way it's said, like mount the mountain, kind of like that. Anyway, it's interesting, I thought. Numbers chapter 20, continuing in verse 23. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor by the border of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron shall be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given to the sons of Israel, because you rebelled against my word at the waters of Meribah. This has just happened. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up on Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments, and put them on Eleazar his son. Aaron shall be gathered and shall die there. Moses did as Yahweh commanded. They went up onto Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation. Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them on Eleazar his son. Aaron died there on the top of the mountain, and Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they wept for Aaron 30 days, even all the house of Israel. Aaron has been with Moses from the beginning, from the burning bush, and all through the negotiations with Pharaoh in Egypt, through the midst of the sea on dry land, all through the wilderness for 40 years. Aaron's been there. This has got to be an awful loss for Moses. But Moses doesn't talk about it, at least not here. Moses did not want to accept the job that God was giving him until God offered his brother Aaron as a helper. But life ends, and here's the end of Aaron. It's a loss. I cried when I wrote this, and I'm thinking, okay, I've lost a tear for Aaron now. And God was kind of like saying, well, you know, Israel cried for 30 days. I guess you can cry for a moment. So, Numbers 21, verse 1. That's the end of chapter 20. Now here we have the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the south, heard that Israel came by the way of Atharim. He fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Israel vowed a vow to Yahweh and said, if you will indeed deliver this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And Yahweh listened to the voice of Israel and delivered up the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. So the name of that place was called Hormah. Okay, Hormah is 10 miles outside of Beersheba, a little bit to the southeast. So that's where this happened. The way of the Atharim, I don't know where that is. It's not in the atlas, so I don't know what it is. It sounds like an ancient route that was known then, but not necessarily now. Continuing in Numbers 21, verse 4, they traveled from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. First time I read that, I didn't believe it. I said, wait a minute, they're not going all the way. And besides, it says Red Sea. Is that what they're calling that? Gulf of Aqaba down there? They're calling it the Red Sea. And they're saying, I didn't believe that they're going all the way around. And then the next verse, or continuing, it says, the soul of the people was very discouraged because of the journey. So, like I say, I was not so sure about what was going on in the description about their travels until I read the Haftarah regarding Jephthah. In the book of Judges, the Ammonites are trying to make war against Gilead, which is up north there, in Israel, and they're making the claim that Israel has stolen their land. Jephthah sets them straight, though, and in his telling of the story, we get a little bit more clarity about the situation we're reading about here. So Judges 11:14. Jephthah sent messengers again to the king of the children of Ammon, and he said to him, Jephthah says, Israel did not take away the land of the children of Ammon, but when they came up from Egypt, and Israel went through the Red Sea and came to Kadesh, remember Kadesh, we were in Kadesh, then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom. We just read that, saying, please let me pass through your land. But the king of Edom did not listen. In the same way, he sent to the king of Moab. We haven't read that, but it does happen. But he refused. So Israel stayed in Kadesh. Then they went through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab and came by the east side of the land of Moab, and they camped on the other side of the Arnon, which is the river. You got to cross the river to get the other side of the Arnon. Oh, nice. So they're up there south of Beersheba. They go all the way down towards Ezion Geber. They go around Edom to the right, and then they got to go all the way back up there. And that little squiggle up there over where it says Hormah, I believe that is the Arnon. So they camped on the other side of the Arnon, but they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the border of Moab. So in order to not set foot in Edom or Moab, they went all the way south. Well, I should just keep reading because I talk about this. We just read in Numbers that the people was very discouraged because of the journey. Well, I guess so. It's a long way through the desert to go all the way around the land of Edom. If you go straight east from Kadesh, Barnea, to the wilderness on the other side of Edom, it's about 75 miles. The trip to go around Edom had to have been at least 130 miles. Maybe 150, maybe more, depends on how far south they went. But that's a long way to go on foot with cattle, wagons, and children. I guess they would be discouraged. Pardon me. In this account with Jephthah, we get a little ahead of ourselves here in Judges, but just so you know, the Arnon is one of the rivers on the far side of the Dead Sea. The order of them is like this. At the southern tip of the Dead Sea, on the east side, is the brook Zered. This is between Edom and Moab. Then, about halfway up the Dead Sea, you have the river Arnon. That's between Moab and the Amorites. The city of Moab is right there kind of at the headwaters of the river Arnon, a little bit to the east. It's in Jordan today. So the first problem Israel came to was Edom. Those negotiations did not go well. They had to go all the way around Edom and continuing north. The next people they have to deal with is Moab. They stayed east of them in the wilderness. They didn't bother them. After that, then it's the Amorites along the Jordan and Ammon to the east. So as you keep going north, first you come to the Amorites and then Ammon is off to the east. You know, Ammon, Jordan, that's Ammon, right? So problem after problem for the children of Israel. But wait, now there's even another problem. In Numbers chapter 21, verse 5, the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? Not again. Come on, they've been doing this over and over. It's been 40 years, they're doing it again. They say here now, for there is no bread, there is no water, and our soul loathes this disgusting food. What are they talking about? Yeah. Yahweh sent venomous snakes among the people, and they bit the people, and many people of Israel died. I just had spider bites this week. Anyway. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned because we have spoken against Yahweh and against you. Pray to Yahweh that he take away the serpents from us. Moses prayed for the people. Yahweh said to Moses, make a venomous snake and set it on a pole. It shall happen that everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. Moses made a serpent of bronze and set it on a pole, and if a serpent had bitten any man, when he looked at the serpent of bronze, he lived. Wow. By the way, I believe that antihistamines would work with snake bites too. I think. Now I know, at least it would help. Now I know that if you've had the same food for a long time, it can get tiresome. Even pizza. I used to work at a pizza place. Restaurant quality pizza, made by an Italian. Fantastic pizza. I got tired of pizza. But this is manna we're talking about here. Bread from heaven that they have been fed with for 40 years. God has a lot of patience with his people, but occasionally Israel will step over the line as they did in this instance. A bunch of people died because of it. God was also the one who let Moses know what to do to stop the plague of the serpents. Make a bronze serpent. You may know this, but I'm going to read what happened in the end to that bronze serpent that Moses made. In 2 Kings chapter 18. Now it came to pass in the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah, and he did that which was right in the eyes of Yahweh, according to all that David his father had done. He removed the high places and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah. He also broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made, because in those days the sons of Israel burned incense to it. And he called it Nehushtan. So if my estimations are correct, that's about 800 years later, after it was made. The book of Joshua takes maybe 50 years. Judges takes about 400. And from the time of David to Hezekiah, it's about 350 years. So this is like 800 years later. The serpent has been kept. And in the end, they were burning incense to it. Man, oh man. Remember Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 12. God says, "Then beware, lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall fear Yahweh your God, and you shall serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other gods, or of the gods of the peoples who are around you, for Yahweh your God among you is a jealous God, lest the anger of Yahweh your God be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth." So he doesn't mess around with this stuff. God didn't like them bowing down to this bronze serpent, burning incense to it. Also, Yeshua said to him, "Get behind me, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship Yahweh your God, and you shall serve him only." So there it is. We know what the right thing to do is. This has not changed. That's still our job today, to worship Yahweh our God and to serve him only. Fleeing idolatry never ends, does it? They were not supposed to think of that bronze serpent as some kind of magical or spiritual thing, but they did. They were not supposed to revere it like that. That's never what God had in mind. That's never what Moses had in mind. So we have to watch out what we revere even today. It's easy to put something on a pedestal like that. Now, back to the travels of the children of Israel. We know now that they are on the far side, the east side of Edom and Moab, going north. Numbers 21:10. And the sons of Israel traveled and camped in Oboth. They traveled from Oboth and camped at Leabarim in the wilderness, which is before Moab, towards the sunrise. From there they traveled and camped in the valley of Zered. Okay, we know where the brook Zered is. It took them this long until they get up to the brook Zered, which is at the far southern end of the Dead Sea. Verse 13, from there they traveled and camped on the other side of the Arnon. So they go all the way from Zered all the way up to the Arnon. That's quite a ways. That's passing around all of Moab, which is in the wilderness that comes out of the border of the Amorites. For the Arnon, it says, is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book of the wars of Yahweh. We don't have the book of the wars of Yahweh, but here it is quoting the book of the wars of Yahweh. Vaheb and Suphah in the valleys of the Arnon, the slope of the valleys that extends to the dwelling of Ar, leans on the border of Moab. Yeah. So Israel has skirted all the way around Edom and now Moab up to the river Arnon. Impressive. From there they traveled to Beer, which is the well of which Yahweh said to Moses, "Gather the people together and I will give them water." Then Israel sang this song, "Spring up well, sing to it, the well which the princes dug, that the nobles of the people dug with the scepter and with their poles." Just another aside. The Bible is an ancient book. We all know this. Modern translators have done their best to modernize it and make it palatable to modern readers. That's not a bad thing. They want people to be able to read and enjoy the Word of God in their current vernacular. But when we come to these quotes in this section, it brings me back to the ancient nature of what we are reading here. It's quoting an ancient book that we don't even know anymore, the book of the Wars of Yahweh. To me, it feels a little bit like some of the things that J.R.R. Tolkien tried to put into his writings in The Lord of the Rings. It's like that. Except that his things were made up. They were fiction. These are actual ancient sayings. They're ancient. Vaheb and Sufa, the valleys of the Arnon, the slope of the valleys that extends to the dwelling of Ar, leans on the border of Moab. Or spring up, well, sing to it, the well which the princes dug, that the nobles of the peoples dug, with the scepter and with their poles. I mean, it's glorious, isn't it? So these are ancient writings, ancient memories of what could have been long forgotten events. But God kept them. For thousands of years, God has kept them. So we can read them again in our Bibles today. What a treat. There's more of this coming in this chapter, but also in the next chapters with Balaam and Balak. There's a whole bunch of this kind of stuff with Balaam. His prophecy is like this kind of stuff. We're not going to get to it, but it's like that. They have that same ancient flavor. Pretty wonderful, I think. So back to Numbers 21, verse 20. And from the wilderness they traveled to Mattanah, and from Mattanah, from Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamot, and from Gamot to the valley that is in the field of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, which looks down on the desert. That's another one. So they've been continuing north. Mount Pisgah is just east of the northern tip of the Dead Sea. So you got the Dead Sea down there, just a little bit east of that. That's Mount Pisgah at the top. And that looks down on the desert. It's in the land of the Amorites. Verse 21, then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, let me pass through your land. We will not turn away into field or vineyard. We will not drink of the water of the wells. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed your border. Same thing they said to Edom. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his border. But Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel into the wilderness and came to Jahaz. He fought against Israel. Israel struck him with the edge of the sword and possessed his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok. The Arnon is in the middle. The Jabbok's way up there. They really, did some damage here. The Jabbok is almost halfway up to the Sea of Galilee on the east side of the Jordan. Even to the children of Ammon is what they did. For the border of the children of Ammon was fortified. Israel took all these cities. Israel lived in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and taken all his land out of his hand, even to the Arnon. Therefore, those who speak by the way, so this is like after this all happened, suddenly along comes, there's been fights along this area a long time. One thing that happened right before the children of Israel got there was this thing about the Amorites taking the land from Moab. But now, the children of Israel have taken it from the Amorites. So then we come to another one of these ancient writings. Therefore, those who speak in Proverbs say, come to Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and established. For a fire has gone out of Heshbon, a flame from the city of Sihon. It has devoured Ar of Moab, the masters of the high places of the Arnon. Woe to you, Moab! You are undone, people of Chemosh. Chemosh is their god. He has given his sons as fugitives and his daughters into captivity to Sihon, king of the Amorites. We have shot at them. Heshbon has perished even to Dibon, and we have laid waste even to Nophah, which reaches to Medeba. Lyrical, man. So anyway, verse 31, Numbers 21. Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorites. Moses sent to spy out Jazer. They took its villages and drove out the Amorites who were there. They turned and went up by the way of Bashan. You know where Bashan is? Bashan is way up there, Golan Heights area, northeast of the Sea of Galilee. That's Bashan. It's a pretty big area. So now they've gone all the way from the southern end of the Dead Sea, all the way up. They're spying out north of the Sea of Galilee. So they're really making some headway here. And in the middle, they own all that. They don't own in the south because that's Moab and Edom. But they do own the middle because they just took it. So Moses sent to spy out Jazer. They took its villages, drove out the Amorites who were there. They turned and went up by the way of Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But Yahweh said to Moses, do not fear him, for I have delivered him into your hand, with all his people and his land. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon. So they struck him and his sons and all his people until there were no survivors, and they possessed his land. So now they own all the way up to Bashan. That's amazing. I'm going to reiterate. Heshbon is near Pisgah at the northern end of the Dead Sea. But Bashan, where Og was king, way up north on the far side of the Sea of Galilee or Chinnereth. These early accomplishments are so great. Israel can and does remember this for generations to come as an example of what God has done and what God can do with them. It should be a reminder to us as well that God is involved with our lives. A reminder that God is able to slay the enemies or problems we face every day. We can trust him. He's there. So this put the children of Israel in a very powerful position to be in before they head west into the promised land proper. So they should be feeling good, and that God did this on purpose. He wanted to build their confidence. After this comes the story of Balak and Balaam, which we won't go into, except to mention that when Balak sends for Balaam to come curse Israel, it's a very long journey to get there. Remember, Balak wants to curse Israel, sends to this weird prophet guy, Balaam. I want you to go curse Israel, sends for him these guys. Well, Balak is in Moab, around the river Arnon. Balaam is way up by the river, Euphrates River. The distance from the river Arnon to the Euphrates is about 350 to 400 miles, depending on where it is. If you're walking, a person would be doing well to do 20 miles a day. That's a lot. I've walked 20 miles. It's a lot. Maybe on horseback, you could do 30. Maybe on a camel, you might be able to do 40. I don't know. But either way, it's about a 15 to 20 day journey in one direction, and probably more than that. It's probably more like a month to get there. And then it's a month to get back. So these negotiations between Balak and Balaam would have taken months before Balaam even got there. It takes a month to get there, takes a month to get back. So that's kind of it for my storytelling. Before I go, I would like to share just one little thing I saw this week in the book of Ephesians. It struck me as I read it, so I thought I would share it with you today. Ephesians chapter 4. And we all need to hear this kind of stuff all the time because we're humans. 4:29, Ephesians. Let no corrupt speech proceed out of your mouth. That's not an easy one. But only what is good for building others up as the need may be, that it may give chesed to those who hear. Chesed is God's loving kindness. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Building up all the time. Forgive me for not being that way. And do not grieve the Ruach HaKodesh of God, with whom you are sealed for the day of redemption. Just that phrase itself, sealed for the day of redemption. Oh my gosh. God has us in his hand. He's holding us until that day comes. Verse 31, let all bitterness, wrath, anger, outcry, and slander be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to each other, just as God also in Messiah forgave you. Now, I know we are all familiar with these verses. At least we should be. But it is good to hear them again. At least it was for me. I saw something this time that I hadn't remembered. And that was that if you read it backwards, the way Dennis talks about, you realize that it's saying that when you have bitterness, wrath, anger, outcry, slander, or malice towards each other, you are grieving the Holy Spirit of God. I don't want to do that. I've done it. I'm sorry about it. I don't want to do that. But it behooves all of us to wake up to that and to realize we don't want to be grieving the Holy Spirit of God. You know, sometimes you have to say what it is, but a lot of times what we need to be doing instead is building each other up. So, I don't know about you, but I don't want to grieve the Holy Spirit of God. I better watch my heart, and I guess you should too. So, thank you for listening, and Shabbat Shalom.